And secondly, I actually just removed the skirt outright.
A tactical undressing.
Pretty much, yes.
There are so many crossover mods for that, so much crossover fan art, music. It is incredible what they've done with these two games that have literally nothing to do with each other.
You released a new Hifuu Club models that were basically the edited versions of the ones I normally used back then. And I thought, maybe should I switch out the models? And then I realized how far I was into the whole thing, and I said, nah, don't do it. I would have to redo every single scene, and that wouldn't be very fun.
Yeah, it's really impressive how Zune managed to basically top his own songs in the CDs, where they're not just rips of the soundtrack, they're complete recompositions in ways that are so unique that people can have genuine discussions over which one's better. Do you like the CD version or the game version?
Like, I cringe when I look at that video, but at the same time I realize, oh damn, I sure have improved, huh?
Hello and welcome to the 10th edition of the Hifuu Community Club. On this show, as you know, we bring on the talented hands and minds of the Touhou community to talk about some of their greatest works. Calling in for the month of September is the 3D animator Vegemite-Flavored Indomie. Would you like to go and introduce yourself and your creative work?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Vegemite-Flavored Indomie, or as I'm known on YouTube as a sentient bowl of instant noodles. Hello. I'm an MMD animator. I've been doing this for, 4 years, I guess.
All right. Well, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, Megafrog. I do really appreciate it.
Sure thing. It's great to have you. So you've been working with MMD for, as you said, about 4 years now.
Yes, more or less. I first downloaded back in 2018. Originally, it was just to make some really short memes for friends on a Discord server, really. And I never really took it seriously until, let's see, in early 2021. Yeah.
Pretty recent, it seems.
Yeah, I've only taken it seriously quite recently.
All right, all right. What was it like sort of learning to use it? What are some of the resources you use to sort of figure out how it works and stuff?
So how I figured out how to work with MMD? Okay, so when I downloaded MMD off a site called, I think it was Learn MMD, yeah. It had some really basic tutorials on how to install it and all. At first, I got really confused because, this is actually my first, the first 3D software I ever worked with. And the main thing that got me confused was the UI. Back then, I didn't know which button did what and all. But after a while, I started figuring it out. One of the biggest challenges I've learned is that since MMD is primarily, most of its content is from Japan, a lot of the models, a lot of the assets, they aren't translated in English. There was a tutorial that allowed me you can actually just edit this model in this software, so you can you can add English names to the parts of the models. But eventually I just gave up on that because it was tedious and it didn't really work well. So I just kind of forced myself to learn a bit of Japanese in a sense.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I can recognize what some kanji means, but I don't know how it's pronounced. So yeah.
Oh, man, I couldn't imagine trying to go through a 3D software like that without being able to speak the language that it's documented in. It's really surprising that MMD, after being so popular for so long, doesn't have English localization, like even a community patch.
It kind of does. It does have an English, for the MMD software itself, it does have an English version. You could switch between Japanese mode and English mode. But what I've noticed is that, like I said, because most of the assets are in Japanese, most of the time they don't bother adding English names to parts. So most of the time you're better off just keeping the software in Japanese.
I suppose that makes sense. I've messed around with a few MMD models that I've downloaded to convert for use in Blender, and it is very tedious seeing a model of 200 parts and none of them are in English. It's like, okay, let me click around this model and try and see if I can figure out what does what. Let's just get this done. Yeah. I can definitely see that being very tedious. I mean, for myself, like the limited knowledge I have in Blender, I would not be able to do if I didn't have assets that were fully in English. So I either make all my assets myself, or I just do what I can to find good assets online.
Well, actually, a friend of mine often converts MMD models into Blender. If like, you need help with that, I do know someone who could help.
Hey, I'll keep in touch then, for sure. So something you do a lot is making Touhou animations in MMD that reach into all sorts of genres and tones, either from very, very serious and somber to extremely lighthearted and funny. How do you manage to cover so many different kinds of animations and do them all so well?
How do I say this? I guess I just fuck around and find out, really.
That is the answer of all time.
I don't really know what to say. I guess because I do, like, what I often do is that, I listen to a lot of music, basically, and I basically try to think up themes based on music a lot of time. That's why you see in a lot of my recent animations, it's timed to the music.
That makes sense, yeah. Yeah, I get a lot of inspiration for writing from music, so I've got to have music when I'm working on the script for any video, any fanfic project, anything like that. It's all coming from music, the general feel that I get from it. So in addition to animating general Touhou content, you seem to specialize in animating the characters from Zune's CD series, the Hifuu Club. What about these characters is fun for you to animate?
I just really like them, honestly. And a lot of the time, their models are easy to manage. Like, they don't have the really long sleeves of the Reimu, for example, which can be a pain in the ass if the MMD's physics doesn't want to work with you.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of options for them because sort of as a buddy cop duo that they are in the Hifuu series, you can put them up to all sorts of hijinks of what they're doing in university, what adventures they're getting up to, like with the club. There's so many options.
Especially since, unlike the rest of the at least the Touhou cast in Gensokyo, there's not really much of their story aside from the music CDs, so you pretty much get to write anything about them.
That's true. Where there's gaps of characterization, we're free to make our own, I suppose.
Yes, that's why I really enjoy the Hifuu Club too.
All right, so something that a lot of users of MMD have confessed is that the program does have some technical issues that can make animating difficult at times, from things like render crashes to model clipping. Have you experienced any of these difficulties? And if so, what are some of the ways that you circumvent them?
Oh, definitely. As for render crashing, well, honestly, it really depends on how complex your animation is and your hardware for the most part. Back then, I used to run on I used to animate on a laptop actually, with 4 gigabytes of RAM.
Wow, couldn't imagine.
At the time, my animations didn't use too much complex effects and all, and it didn't even run through an editor at all. It was just rendered to an AVI, and then I converted it into an MP4 and just posted it like that.
Wow.
But eventually, I did get an upgrade for my laptops, and I started using more effects, and rendering became a lot more smoother. And eventually, I got my PC, which I still use now. And well, it's not the best PC out there, but hey, it works.
Oh yeah, if it does the job.
Okay, model clipping is an interesting topic since some models you really have no choice, and things will just clip because they just do. But sometimes you can find ways to work around it. For example, I'm sure you recall I've made animations of a chase scene, a car chase scene with Rank and Maribel, right?
I do remember this one.
Yes. So normally, if I didn't, fix things around, the skirts would clip through the bottom of the car or sometimes through the side. So in order to stop that from happening, I employ two things. Firstly, I turn off the physics of the skirts and pose them in such a way so they don't clip outside the car. This is for shots where the skirt might be visible in the first place. And secondly, I actually just remove the skirt outright.
A tactical undressing.
Pretty much, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, creative solutions like that are what ends up making it work, because if you have an understanding of what the camera's going to see and what it isn't, it's okay to just make quick shortcuts like that because it'll work and no one's going to notice other than, when you post about it on Twitter later.
If something's not on camera, you don't have to put too much thought into it, really.
Yeah, especially when it comes to speeding up render times, when we have scenes that have a ton of polygons and a ton of movement, you really want to cull those polygons by making them not visible when they're outside the camera. This is something that they often have to do with like video game renders as well for high poly games. Is you really got to know what you can do with your resources and be able to work around the camera. It's always funny for me to see like animation shots from like an outside perspective because you realize how much there isn't there that you're kind of imagined was there. All the stuff behind the camera, all the stuff outside the scene. It's funny.
Whenever like, I think about those outside shots, I always think back to that Yachier video I made. I made 2 versions of the video, posts of that video. The first one is with the normal camera angles, and the second one is where I actually zoomed it out to show what's actually happening. It looks really funny.
Yeah, it's funny because the way that you had to pose the model to get those funny angles, quite funny. All right, so something else that comes up pretty frequently in a couple of your MMD animations is firearm animation. You've animated a few characters carrying and operating guns of various sorts, historic and modern. Tell us a little bit about your experience with firearms. Do you own any yourself?
Well, I don't own firearms myself. I live in Indonesia, and we can't exactly own firearms as far as I know. I'm not sure about the laws, honestly. Most of my experience of firearms is just from video games, honestly. And videos, like, I'm sure you know like the YouTube channel Forgotten Weapons, right? Yeah, I'm a big fan of that channel, actually.
Yeah, there's so many neat guns on there that, like, some of them, they range from, like, you know, semi-practical to just completely wacky. And it's always fun to see just what the hell various different governments were coming up with when trying to get an edge in World War I.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, as for animating guns, honestly, I'd like to say I'm not very experienced in it since that's not really my main. It's not really my main thing, basically. Yeah, I honestly don't really understand much about animating guns.
Oh, I see. And I can see how it would be pretty difficult if you don't own one or have a lot of experience in firing one. The physics of a gun aren't exactly the way that they look in video games, and so there's a lot of easy pitfalls to fall into with animating guns the way that they're animated in video games. I couldn't tell you how many video games I've seen where the hammer of a revolver shoot like cocks after you fire the firearm.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
On the subject of revolvers, one detail I like to pay attention to when it comes to revolvers is checking who made the revolver and which way the cylinder spins. I know it's such a minute detail, but I always try to make sure that, you know, the Colt revolvers, they go clockwise and the Smith & Wesson go counterclockwise. I believe that's the correct way to rotate.
I think you're right on that. I haven't fired a Smith & Wesson revolver before, but I think you're right on that.
Well, I always try to make sure that works. And also the way the double actions fire and all.
Right, yeah. And that's another thing that video games mess up a lot. The one game that got it really right that made me really happy was Counter-Strike.
Really?
Because in Counter-Strike, you have to, with the, like in Global Offensive, you can get a revolver as one of your starting pistols, and you have to hold the mouse button down to fire because it's a double action. So you squeeze, you see the hammer go back, and then it shoots. So there's actually a bit of a delay on it. Yeah, I think for a lot of games, having that kind of delay wouldn't be that fun, but it works in Counter-Strike because it's a balancing mechanic for how powerful how powerful that revolver is. So yeah, that's one game that got that revolver just perfect, and I was really happy about that. All right, so do you have any new animated projects that you want to work on? Anything that you can talk about right now?
Well, I've got at least I've got 2 things planned so far in my head right now. One is just a little thing with Ranko and Maribel, as usual. Another thing is I'm trying to make like another sort of Guilty Gear style fighting intro with Reimu and Remilia, but the models are the ones that are based off their designs from that Touhou Castlevania game.
Yeah. I think I saw you post a little bit about one of those models. That was neat.
Yeah, I noticed. Oh, hey, this. So what actually happened? The reason why I posted that is because so I was hanging around in my server while listening to some Guilty Gear music on Spotify, and a friend of mine posted a MMD animation someone else made. I was using those Touhou Castlevania models, and then I realized Wait a minute, what? Reimu here sort of looks like Soul Bad Guy.
She really does. I would have taken it for a Guilty Gear mod if you had told me otherwise.
Yeah.
Well, hey, maybe someone could make that into a Strive mod. Who knows? Strive mods are so funny to me.
I've yet to actually play Guilty Gear Strive. I don't own it.
It's a good game. It's a very good game.
I only have XR and Accent Core, which are pretty fun.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a big fan of the Guilty Gear series, but those games are both very good. All right, so oftentimes in your animations, you use the Touhou project as sort of a medium to parody other franchises and other existing properties. Sometimes this includes lip syncs of game cutscenes or movie scenes, and sometimes it just catches the general vibe of the thing it's parodying. What are some specific properties that you've parodied in the past, and what gives you the idea to parody one specific work with Touhou characters?
Okay. So when I started out, I think. Oh yes. So here's the thing. When I started out, the first thing I remember that really caught on, with a lot of traction was one animation I made of basically Yakuza style animation with Reimu and Mima. I think it was the Mima Everywhere system I made. Yes, and it's based off the Majima Everywhere system from Yakuza Kiwami. And from there, I actually started, I'm going to make a lot of Yakuza style Touhou animation. I do really like the Yakuza series. It's pretty fun. And I like Touhou, so I might as well just mash the two together. And that's why there's a lot of heat action animations and all on, a lot of my videos, basically. I also did, Ace Combat a few times. I also really like Ace Combat. And recently, one of the most recent ones is like Lupin the Third and Guilty Gear.
All right, yeah. I think it's really neat to make crossovers with Touhou and other series because Touhou has so much content. There are so many stories. There are so many games that cover so many different genres. There's going to be some through thread with anything. You can cross over Touhou project with basically anything, and you'll find some common ground that you can latch onto and make something really interesting with.
And if there isn't any common ground, you can write your own common ground.
You can as well, yeah. Even if it's just based on, the outward design of a character, you can still make it work and it will still be really great. Objectively speaking, there are basically no running through threads between Touhou and TF2, and yet that is still super well parodied. There are so many crossover mods for that, so much crossover fan art, music. It is incredible what they've done with these two games that have literally nothing to do with each other.
Pretty much.
Yeah, you mentioned one property that you parody a couple of times is the Yakuza series, including some animations of sort of fight scene introductions and a lot of references to the Majima Everywhere. So what are some of the essential elements of making a Yakuza parody?
Well, for me, the main thing I always look for first is the music. I try to look for something that would sort of fit in the Yakuza game. And then from there, I try to think of how the intro should play out. How should the character show up, enter the frame, basically, and all. And I try to run with it, basically. I just keep thinking of how it should play out in my mind until I find one that's satisfying, really. I don't do storyboards or something like that. I don't really plan them out. I just do it.
Yeah, you kind of just got to roll with what you got in that case. And I mean, it works if you have a really good understanding of what you want to go into with. You don't necessarily need to storyboard out. If you're going purely by intuition and creativity and general vibe, you can kind of just go as you go and it will still be really good.
Pretty much.
Especially if you're going, by the direction of things like music or and a few other details of things like, the way you put text on screen and things like that, and using, of course, the Yakuza font. Those are, no-brainer choices. You can kind of just do those as you go. So yeah, another series that comes up a lot is Ace Combat. You've mentioned that you've got a couple of lip sync clips going over Ace Combat cutscenes with characters from the Touhou project. What about Ace Combat is really fun for you to parody, and why does the crossover work so well?
As for what I really like about Ace Combat, a lot of dialogue is really bloody quotable, especially Ace Combat Zero. It's really very fun. The stories there are pretty nice. Dialogue is pretty interesting, funny sometimes, and just outright quotable. Yeah. And second, well, what was the second thing you asked? Sorry.
So what makes this crossover work so well? It's so good, but I can't explain why.
I honestly don't know what really makes it work so well.
Sometimes I do, yeah. Sometimes you're just like, hey, I like this thing and this thing put together. Wow. I mean, the first person to put peanut butter on a hamburger wasn't thinking that it was going to taste any good, but look how far we've come in society now. They're just like, hey, a peanut butter sandwich is good. Hamburger's good. I'd fill in the rest, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
People are gonna be angry at me for openly advocating for goober burgers on my channel, and you know what? Screw those people. Goober burgers are fucking delicious.
I see.
I will defend that to my last dying breath. I love a goober burger.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so yeah, another thing you mentioned was a couple of months ago, you finished a pretty big animated project, which is titled Usami the Third,
Yeah.
a parody of the opening sequence of Lupin the Third. Tell us a little bit about this.
Okay, so what would you like to know about it, actually? Because I don't really know what you want me to tell you about it.
What is this sort of based on? Like, what's it sort of parodying? What's it sort of intending to be here?
Oh, well, so I was just listening to, Lupin the First soundtrack, and I thought, why don't I try my hand at making my own sort of like intro to like the hypothetical like Hifuu Club show or something like that. And then I said, yeah, let's just try that out, this song, and then it worked out, I guess.
Yeah, it's amazing that like the level of editing and production is really a step up from a lot of other MMD animations I've seen. It's really rather surprising. Even within it, it's funny because it's a parody of Lupin the Third in a way, but nestled within it are several smaller parodies to other titles that you can kind of notice if you look carefully. Parodies of Yakuza, Doctor Who, things like that. Of course, I had to put a reference to Majima everywhere. So
Yes.
and yeah, there's a really unique character to this animation, like the use of the lights to sort of color the characters within a scene and contrasting with like the solid backgrounds and the bright white and black text. There are a lot of shots with really interesting filters and things like that. It has so much character in the way it used light and color. It's surprising for MMD. I don't see a lot of MMDs really intensely use light to bring that much character to a scene. So it was really surprising and nice to see.
It's actually honestly quite experimental because this is the first time I really tried messing around with filters a lot more.
It worked out really well. So, hey, maybe you can learn a little bit from that and see if you can experiment on some other new projects.
I guess. Although I don't want to make like a really long project too often because the Usami the Third animation took an entire month to make because combination of things really like me moving out to where I live now and my university schedule being quite packed really. I'm not gonna make really long animations too often.
That's definitely understandable. It's really hard to commit to something that has that big of a production, especially when you're busy with other things. Like, I know I keep telling myself I'm not going to spend 3 months on a single video again, but yet here we are. I've spent 2 months on the current video, and I'm probably going to spend another 2. So
Yeah,
it's an easy trap to fall into. So having the self-control to pull out and just be like, no, I'll work on small things for now. It's impressive.
and when you're working on a long thing, you gotta make sure you don't Duke Nukem Forever it.
Yeah, you gotta make sure you don't Pikmin for it.
That really happened to me when I was working on my chase scene animation. Because while I was working on it, suddenly a modeler by the name of Takarabako, I think that's how it's pronounced, yeah. He released a new Hifuu Club models that were basically the edited versions of the ones I normally used back then. And I thought, maybe, should I switch out the models? And then I realized how far I was into the whole thing. And I said, nah, don't do it. I would have to redo every single scene, and that wouldn't be very fun.
You gotta make sure that you don't sort of lap yourself in a technical sense because, like, as you keep going, your own skills are going to get better and the technology that you're using is going to get better. So it's really easy to kind of lap yourself and be like, oh, I want to go back and change this or that. And it's a difficult trap to set in. There are some things you can make, changes you can make during production if you think it'll make a big improvement. You got to make sure that you focus on getting the product finished as opposed to making sure everything is as good as it could be.
Pretty much.
Because this is really just a concept that we learn in design in general, is that no design is ever 100% finished. You kind of just have to go until you can't go anymore, either because you run out of budget, you run out of time.
Well, I don't really have the budget or time. I don't have a deadline for any of these things. I just try to upload things when I can.
Right. But I mean, studying in university, there's
Yeah.
only so much time that you can have to dedicate to that kind of thing.
Yeah, like nowadays I always go home at around 4, and then I usually get pretty exhausted, so I don't really animate too long. Unless I'm on the weekend, and I do enjoy my weekends.
Weekends are nice, yeah. Yeah, honestly, I should have studied more on my studies back when I was in college instead of messing around on YouTube and video games, but what can you do? All right, so I do think we have time to go over some questions regarding Touhou itself. So, as a fan of the series, what are your thoughts on the official Bullet Hell games? Do you have any one-credit clears?
Honestly, I never really beat the Touhou mainline game proper. I've technically beaten Mountain of Faith on normal ones, but I used that bug with Maris's lasers, where on 4 power it would just nuke everything. Yeah, that's how I beat the game. Mountain of Faith is actually my very first Touhou game.
Oh wow, not a bad choice to start with, honestly.
I found it because one day I was browsing YouTube. I saw a video titled October 1st. And it had
October 1st.
Yes, that one. And it had Medic singing Minorika's theme. And then I thought, well, this music sounds pretty good. I wonder what it was originally was. And then I found out Touhou that way.
It is so incredible to me how many people found Touhou through the September 1st videos. September 1st, October 1st, all of those. It's so funny to me. That and the just the number of SFMs that use Suika's theme for some reason.
Yeah.
Drunk as I am, I don't know why. Again, I can't understand why those two communities have so much crossover.
I guess it really shows that Touhou's music is really a huge draw.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like you could hear that anywhere and still be like, you could hear it in a meme parody and you'd still be like, this music is good. I can tell. It's got that compositional quality to it.
Yeah, I really respect the skill at making music, right?
Yeah. Just the amount of music in each game, like even for a lot of other indie game developers, oftentimes they employ leitmotif to be able to reuse one melody, throughout several different compositions, which isn't, I wouldn't say at all, a lazy form of composition. It's actually a very smart and very efficient form of composition. The fact that Zune doesn't use that just makes it more impressive that he's making so many completely new compositions for every game, and he keeps doing it.
I think the only time he does use, I think leitmotif or something is when it's for the main menu theme, I believe, where you sometimes hear
he does use that.
I do love that, actually. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the main menus and oftentimes in the credits theme, he'll reuse a lot of motifs.
There's also the motif in the floating fighting in Urban Legend and Limbo. What my favorite part of it is in the character select screen. I really love that song.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really love the soundtrack of all the fighting games is just immaculate. It's such a neat way to develop upon the existing music of Zune, and it's great because it means these remixes are official. So they're really high quality, and they develop so much on the compositions that Zune himself wrote. It's amazing. For instance, I really like Shin Miyamaro's theme, as it is in the games. But I also really like the way that it is in 14.5 and 15.5, which are two completely unique compositions and are completely different, and I love them for completely different reasons. But they're all really good all in their own ways, which is really surprising.
Yeah.
So being a fan of the Hifuu Ceiling Club, I can imagine you've listened to probably a few of the CDs. So do you have a favorite of the official Touhou CDs? And if so, what's your favorite aspect of it?
I really like... I like Ghostly Field Club and Magical Astronomy.
All right.
My favorite parts about them, honestly, for Ghostly Field Club, I really like the Girls Ceiling Club theme. It's really great. I think it's nice. A really nice introductory game in a sense. And Mary the Magician is a really interesting track because it has this haunting feel to it. I kind of like it.
It does.
As for Magical Astronomy, I really like some of the very fast-paced songs in it, like especially Greenwich in the Sky. I really like Greenwich in the Sky, if that's not obvious enough.
Yeah, it's really impressive how Zune managed to basically top his own songs in the CDs, where they're not just rips of the soundtrack, they're complete recompositions in ways that are so unique that people can have genuine discussions over which one's better. Do they like the CD version or the game version? The fact that can even be a real discussion that people have shows that Zune really made it into just about a new song for a lot of the tracks. For instance, I really like the CD version of why am I blinking on the name now? Desire Drive. I really like the CD version of Desire Drive way more than I like it in the games, because I'm not a big fan of 10 Desire soundtrack. It's good, but I just love all of those songs the way they were remixed in the CDs. It's so excellent. The energy that Desire Drive has on the CDs, wonderful.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also like listening to the CDs while you read the booklets is a really neat experience that I really don't get with like any other game series.
It is. It is just great.
It's such a neat little touch. Like Zune's creativity is just overflowing in everything he does. Whether it's, making music CDs, he's writing additional stories to put in a booklet to put in the CD. Like, just if he's making a tech demo for Ray Taisai, he'll make it into an entire new game and it becomes Gold Rush. Like, just Zune cannot be. I don't feel like he can even stop himself from just making more content. He's just overflowing with creativity all the time.
He can even make a song about two girls having a hangover.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This man wrote his own theme song. He cannot be stopped.
Yeah, I really hope Zune makes another Hifuu CD soon. I really look forward to the next one.
It'd be really nice to see. It is unfortunate we get a little less content now because, I mean, he's currently working on writing for 2 print works.
Yeah.
And he's doing a game now every 2 years. So, and then occasional off-year games. So, it's really tough for him to put out CDs, but he's still chugging along, even for a guy that's now married and has 2 kids. Like, he is still chugging along. It is impressive.
He's pretty impressive, yeah.
He's everything I could look up to as an artist, and I will never be able to match his sheer workaholic attitude. It's amazing.
He enjoys what he does, really. Yeah.
He does. And they always say that, like, if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Which, I mean, considering how much Zune drinks, I don't know if that's the case. But,
his real job is drinking.
his real job is drinking. So that's a side gig, So yeah, have you had any chance to finish any of the official Touhou print works?
Well, I'm going to be honest. I've actually never finished any of them. And so sometimes it's kind of embarrassing to say this because sometimes I like to see a lot of people put like the print works as, these are very important to read. You have to read these, and then I just never get around to reading them.
I mean, I guess it's kind of that way with anything in the series where it's like, you'll have people hyping it up like, oh, you have to read this to understand the lore and everything. It's like, you don't really have to. Like, they're good, but I feel as though any other part of Touhou is enjoyable on its own. You can listen to just the CDs and like those. You can play just the games and like those. You can do just the print works and like those. Like, I don't care too much for the elitist attitude of, oh, you're not a real fan if you don't read the print works, or you're not a real fan if you can't 1cc every game on Lunatic. It's like, okay, simmer down. Some people have jobs. So yeah, I definitely think there are several that are worthwhile to read, but like, I wouldn't like stress anyone out like, oh, you gotta do this. Even as much as I shill, basically every episode I have to shill Wild and Horn Hermit on here. It's good, but like, again, it's also long, and a lot of people don't have time to read it.
How long has it been running again? I can't remember.
It ran for about a decade, I think.
Oh, wow.
I think I don't want to say the exact dates because I don't remember. I think it was 2011 to 2020 or 2021. It ended recently. So I came into it like halfway in like 2015, and there was still a lot to read even back then. So
Yeah.
no, catching up with the Toho Printworks is a lot because you get like what all the 4 manga, like the 4 series of manga for the fairies. You got Cajun Lunatic Renegade, you got Wild and Horn Hermit, you got Foul Detective Satori, you got Lotus Eaters. There's a lot to catch up on if you're getting into the game this late. So yeah, no, don't let anyone shame you for not reading the print works. There's a lot to do.
I hear there's also a lot of discussion about how consistent the characters are in between print works, and that's it's pretty confusing to me, honestly.
It's pretty much just like you got to get to a point where you just don't take it like you don't think about it too hard because like Zune is not the most consistent writer. Because his ideas, most of the way he writes is just the ideas he has of the character in his head, which is not the right way to write. But when you've been writing for 30 years, like your ideas of the characters are going to change a little bit. So I think that's why he stresses so much like, hey, if things don't make sense, just go with my most recent work because that's what I am closest to right now, you know? And I think sometimes the character inconsistencies do actually make sense ludonarratively. Like, for example, a lot of people complain about how Reimu is kind of written kind of flat and kind of uninteresting in Wild and Horn Hermit. But it makes more sense when you consider like the perspective of the story. It's not from an outside perspective. It's told from the perspective of Kazan, who is one of the characters. And that's kind of her thing. She generalizes people and kind of makes assumptions about them. So sometimes they seem a bit flat or like more boring than they are like outside of that series. But that's just because that's how Kazan sees them. All right, so now I could take a guess from your animations and tweets, but do you have a favorite character? And if so, what makes this character stand out to you from the rest of the cast?
Well, you could only probably tell from my profile picture, it's Renko is my favorite character. And say, like, what do I like about her is, I just think she's pretty cool, really. That's about. I think she's pretty neat. That's really it.
She is a very cool character. I think both of the Hifuu Club characters are very cool, but just the sheer like coolness factor that Renko has going on with like her outfit, her kind of punkish attitude, it's all great. And the fact that even like outside of that, she's just also an incredible genius. Like that's such a neat detail that gets really fleshed out so well in the CDs. You know, every once in a while she gets just like, you know, they're just having a casual conversation, and then she's like, "Yeah, so over the last 2 minutes, I've calculated the depths of hell." Like it's such like an off-putting thing because you get it so rarely.
Also, that reminds me that it's kind of interesting that Renko is more popular than Maribel in most circles, considering the fact that all of the music CDs are from Maribel's perspective.
They are, yeah. It does definitely feel a bit more like Maribel is the main character in a lot of ways, and Renko's the side character.
Yeah, that's exactly that. But somehow Renko became more popular.
Yeah. It's not exactly certain why that is. I think the Touhou fandom definitely has something on for tomboys though, so that might be it.
Perhaps.
And I mean, hey, I don't blame them. I'm totally there. So, do you own any Touhou merchandise, official or otherwise?
I've got none, honestly. I don't really have any pocket money to buy it. I would very well damn buy some if I could find any, money and merchandise to begin with.
That's fair enough. I'm not big on buying merchandise myself. I have one figurine. I think that's it. I think that is all the Touhou merch I've purchased.
Well, that's nice.
All right, so we do have some time left to go over some of the questions from our very own Hifuu community.
Mm-hmm.
So Carbonic Pikmin asks, I remember we're talking with you about animations you were planning to do out over the last year, especially with the Yakuza dynamic intro-styled Touhou ones. What's your favorite animation that you've done so far? I guess the question is asking your favorite of these Yakuza intro animations?
My favorite of the Yakuza intros that I think in recent that I really like, I guess. But for me, I think it's the one with the Alice's intro in a way. Kind of.
All right.
As for my favorite animations overall in general, I don't really have like, honestly, it's not even a recent one. My favorite video in the sense is one of my very first okay, it's actually a really old animation. I think it's the first rendered animation, the first animation I rendered with MMD. It's just an animation of Reimu, Alice, and Martha dancing to the song September.
Oh,
and
that's classic.
It's so far back, but I really like that video because it just reminds me of how far I've gone at this point.
Oh yeah, like looking back that far as an artist is really a window into just a completely different you.
Yeah. Like, I cringe when I look at that video, but at the same time, I realize, oh, damn, I sure have improved, huh?
It's healthy to look back at your old art and cringe over it. There's a reason why I saved all of my horrible, horrible writings and drawings from middle school. Got them all in a packet of paper. And sometimes I'll look back at there and see, I'll see like TF2 fan art from when I was 14. And it's terrible. But you know what? I look at it and think, wow, I'm just as bad. Nah. But no, it's good and healthy to sort of like look back and cringe at your old art. But at the same time, like you can both see how you've improved, which is really nice. But you can also see like the different kind of artist you were back then. Not just a difference in skill, but even just a difference in the kind of art that you would have made. Yeah, what you do, what sort of like emotional state you're in back then, because I think that greatly affects your art. I can definitely see, because I kept all my writings, everything I wrote down from creatively from the past 7 years, like I have this roadmap of my life, and I can actually remember who I was as a person at various different points, not because I remember that well, I have a pretty bad memory, but because I can see it based on the dates that I had on things that I wrote. So always save your old art, even if you don't like it that much. Please save your old art. Later you is going to thank you for it. Even if you don't like it, save everything. Put it on a hard drive, put it in a drawer so you don't have to look at it. Do whatever you have to do so that you don't think about it, but come back to it when you want to.
Pretty much. Good practice.
That's my advice there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so A Million asks, funny that we have the Hifuu MMD maker on Hifuu Community Club. Very funny indeed. On that note, are there any animations you want to do with other characters? I guess of the Touhou characters?
Well, I did say earlier that I was going to make an animation for Reimu and Remilia. And, but like in general, I feel like I'm mostly going to animate the Hifuu Club most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, once you find your niche and it works.
At this rate, I'm wondering if I'm basically become the person who's making the most Hifuu animations at this point.
I mean, hey, the question asker did say the Hifuu MMD maker, so I suppose that is a bit of your legacy now. Hey, that is not a bad legacy. To be known for doing what you love to do is, I think, every artist's dream. So, all right. So I think that is about all the time that we have for this episode. But before we take it out, do you want to tell the audience where they can find your content?
Well, you could find my content on Twitter and YouTube. That's all I post normally. Also, do you mind if I like say like a little message to some people there?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. So first, I would like to thank Harpoonite and Master of Helium. Those two animators are actually the reason why I knew about MMD in the first place. They kind of inspired me to start it. I'd also like to thank a lot of my friends. Firstly, I'd like to thank my friend Brian. You're probably watching this on YouTube when this is out, but thanks for sticking around, mate. And I also want to thank a lot of my friends from servers like Banco, Jay, Nowfall, everyone really. There's so many people to thank. I really appreciate the friends I have now.
Of course, yeah. Having a really good inner circle of friends and other artists to talk to is really important for developing as an artist. So yeah, it's always endearing to hear artists, go back to their roots and talk about the people that helped them to get to where they are. So
yeah, and I just really love. I remember back then I had like a small circle of friends on Discord when I first started MMD. It's like me, Ryan, and someone named Bamboozler, I think is how I should pronounce it. And then eventually we like, well, I mean, Ryan also used to do MMD animations with me, but now he's mostly focused on trying to draw things. He's gotten pretty decent at it.
Oh wow, yeah,
But,
nice.
yeah, I have to say, he's more of his art soon. He's been busy recently, so he hasn't much time for drawing. But I hope he gets around to getting more art out. I do enjoy his stuff.
For sure, yeah. I'll have to check him out.
So yeah, I think that should be all for I could say.
All right, thank you. So thank you for joining me tonight. It's been really great to have you on. As a reminder for the audience, we will be back on the 1st of November with a new featured creator. So until then, please wait warmly. Remember that the intro to the Hifuu Community Club is Aquasphere by Mondorium. There's a link to their official YouTube channel in the video description. Always remember to please, please, please treat the artists in the Touhou community with respect. They do so much for us, so remember to credit art and music. And remember that you can always support artists through commissions, prints, views, shares, and album downloads. So thank you for tuning into the Hifuu Community Club, and to all, have a pleasant evening.
See you later, guys.